Hello, welcome to the Foreign Matters video blog titled News Just In, God's Winning. God's in her heaven, the Pope's in Israel, but in the heart of most newsrooms is a God-shaped hole. Most journalists are not grounded in even basic theology, meaning we risk misunderstanding its impact on a raft of stories. On his Holy Land tour, the Pope has called for a Palestinian state. This is dutifully reported, but some journalists think that it doesn't really matter what he says. There are times when I concur with Stalin's famous military question when told that the Pope was criticising him during World War II. Well, how many divisions does he have? Said Joseph. But on many issues, the Pope's words do matter in the court of global public opinion. He can influence policy in the Middle East towards the Christian minority, for example. Many of those minorities are having a bit of a hard time. Just ask those in Bethlehem. They've been there for almost 2,000 years, but are now leaving in droves. Christianity is treated by many people as irrelevant, and sometimes even as embarrassing. Many people might believe a Christian group singing about Jesus is deeply uncool, something to joke about, but somehow Bob Marley singing Jah Love is not. I was reminded of religion's decline in our national discourse upon hearing that the Egyptian government is to kill all swine in the country to combat swine flu. The 400,000 pigs are owned by Christians who have an uneasy relationship with the majority population. I made a bad joke in the newsroom. Well, maybe they'll only kill the firstborn, a reference to Pharaoh and the Hebrews. And I was met with a sort of blank look I get when, if offered a biscuit, I respond with the Christians saying, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Well, so far so inconsequential. But in our post-Christian society, journalists' failure to have religious knowledge, alongside an understanding of history and politics, means we frequently fail to explain how, for example, the Al-Qaeda franchise has a global agenda and strategy, and that the label anti-Western covers another truth, that the jihadists are anti-Hindu, anti-Buddhist, Jew, Christian, probably Klingon. A new book on this subject called Blind Spot, When Journalists Don't Get Religion, quotes the commander of a terrorist attack in Saudi Arabia who kills several Europeans and then, quote, "We found several Hindu dogs and cut their throats. The manager was a vile Hindu," unquote. Most reports repeat that this attack was against Westerners. This is said of the Bali bombing, which fails to recognise that it took place in Indonesia's only majority Hindu territory, and it was linked to the UN's backing for East Timor's independence from Indonesia, and that in turn was linked to the bombing of the United Nations headquarters in Baghdad, and there are many other examples. Anyone who studies the philosophy of the Al-Qaeda franchise quickly discovers it's quite open about its agenda. The world is divided into the House of Islam and the House of War. The strategy is to destabilize the so-called apostate leaders of Muslim countries, unite all Muslim lands under one ruler, and then move on to the House of War. This is bin Laden in 2001, quote, "This war is fundamentally religious. Those who try to cover this are deceiving the Islamic nation," unquote. Now, the above contests the mantra that our foreign policy is to blame. Sure, it's a factor in what's happening around the world, but to discount the theology of the main actors on the stage is to miss one of the fundamental truisms of our time, that God's on a winning streak, and that if Richard Dawkins is correct about the God delusion, then a majority of the world is deluded, and if you want to understand a majority of the world, you better get religion. That's Foreign Matters. See you next time.